Alright everyone, welcome back. I'm going to do another session of painting on our Foetid Bloat Drone. You can see where we left it last time. This time, we're going in for a major jam session on all of the purple metallic bits here, and a few of the extra metallic bits and pieces around the Mini. So let's go ahead and break on into the painting portion of this and talk about what paints we're going to use for this process. You've noticed that we've already laid down Violet from Vallejo Model Color, and we're going to be adding Sunset Purple from Scale 75 Scale Color and Citadel's Emperor's Children. And then two more colors to bring in as a shade and a highlight: Reaper Master Series Nightshade Purple and Citadel Fulgrim Pink. Now these are going to be colors that we use very sparingly, but they'll be key in making sure that we get enough of a gradient. So these 5 paints we'll be using. You'll notice there's this slight shift from violet into more of a reddish purple tone in that palette. Alright, to get started, we're going to be doing 2 major things here. We're going to be blocking in any remaining violet that didn't get covered on the initial base coating here. You'll notice we've got all these strips of bare violet, even amongst some of the airbrushed bits of flesh back here. And we're also going to start adding in bits of Nightshade Purple for shaded areas where less light is reaching in general. And we're also going to be starting to build up Sunset Purple in the more lit areas to give it a redder, richer, more purple tone. Alright, at this point we're going to bring in more of that Sunset Purple, and we're going to bring it in on some of the flatter areas of where we're working. And we're also going to bring out a bit of our Emperor's Children Pink to work in over the Sunset Purple and mix in a little bit. So we're doing a lot of mixing between the colors, and we're taking it very easy on the gradients. We're going to get a lot of saturation where we know we want it, and then we'll kind of feather and wet blend it out towards the edges. I'm using some of the same concepts used in non-metallic metals here, so I'm getting a very metal-looking surface without necessarily an extremely metallic luster and sheen. It's supposed to look like it's painted metallics. So along with the metallics that we're putting in on the panels here, we also have a few spots where growths are kind of bursting through metallic plates and a bit of the flesh on the back. So we're going to use the same colors to work these up, and we're going to do it in more of an organic way. So we're just hitting the very tips of them as we move up through a bit of Violet, Sunset Purple, and then Emperor's Children Pink. We don't need to go quite as high to bring it up to Fulgrim Pink, but some of the edges and recesses will drop a little bit of that Nightshade Purple into. So again, we're reusing the same colors here. The same colors that we used on the back of the flesh are the same colors that we're using on the metal bands, are the same colors that we're using on the gross. We're just using them in different ways to make them look like different textures and different bits and pieces of the Mini itself. So we're also hitting some of the tubes here with the same colors, and a few of the bits and pieces and panels on the fleshy parts. We're going to worry more about those later, and we'll also leave the bluish purple bits for later, but everything that's going to be a red purple we're trying to work on in this session. That'll also include the stringy fleshy bits in between all of the horns along the top. There's a little bit of texture there, so trying to work the texture of the stringiness is key. So at this point, we've gotten one of the bands of metal around one of the turbines done, and we've also worked up most of the purple metallic on one of the weapons. We've actually rebased some of the green areas on the weapons themselves to turn them purple like this for a little bit of additional contrast with the model. But getting those filled in and hitting the very high points with a little bit of that Fulgrim pink, including the rivets. So the rivets we're doing in non-metallic colors. On top of that, I'm using very quick, very small, very light lines to get the edges of chips and dings, and using the topography of the model to find where those should be. If there's a little bit of paint about, it's not such a big deal. We can turn that into damage, we can turn that into another detail, or we can just simply blend it back in. Now we're going to start working on the metal along the top, and then afterwards we'll start moving into some of the other metals. But before we can start on this, I kind of touch up some of the base violet a bit and then blend in a bit of the sunset purple along the top. Alright, so we've gotten the gooey bits, we've gotten some of the metal panels done, and we've also done some of the little pustules busting through here in our purples. Let's take a short break, and then once we get back, we'll work on the rest of it. Alright, now we're back from our break. Whew. Let's take a look at where we're at. We've got a few of the metallic bits done, but we have quite a bit more to work on as far as the panels go, including one of the bile spewers and two of the turbines. The back has a couple of straps, and we'll also need to hit those as well. There's a couple of tubes, but those aren't as important as getting the highlights in on the metal bits. Some of the other important aspects to point out here is not to focus too much on things that are unseen, especially on the bottom, but you do want to get a hint of color in there. So I do make sure that I get some of my base coat wherever I want it purple or violet, and I only really highlight out where it should be strongest. I do want a few highlights where it's a little bit dark. Metal tends to glint just a little bit, but not too heavy, not too exaggerated, and not terribly visible. Even the little bits kind of peeking out where the turbine guards are mounted, we only add just a little wick of a highlight. Alright, at this point, make sure you hit all the rivets, make sure all of the edges and chips and things that you want to bring out are hit, and don't be afraid to work back some of your gradients if you need to work in a little bit more color, a little bit more saturation. This is really the kind of detail stage of this metallic. We're going to be doing something similar for the bile spewers that are in more of a bluish purple, but that'll wait until our next session. For now, we're just focused on this. I also need to finish up little bits and pieces kind of around the back, including the bands, strapping the flesh in, but I will focus on finalizing those later. Mostly I'm trying to get the larger metal bands knocked out here. The smaller ones are much easier, they're much tighter, much more controlled levels of highlights. So at this point, we've been painting for about 4 hours on this and doing a lot of metal work. We've hit a lot of different areas, a lot of different details here. This is a good time for us to take a break on this section of our work, but thanks for sticking through with me. This is only one of the colors, but one of the more important colors on bringing this out, and it's something that I like doing by hand instead of airbrushing. On the next session, we'll pick this up. We still have some horns to do. We have to do the edge highlighting on the green and breaking out some of the details and pitting there. So until next week, see you then. See you on Twitch over the weekend, and have fun painting some minis.